All right, looks like we're live. First and foremost, guys, I'm really sick, and the neighbors have set up a giant like circus tent right outside my window, and it's loud. So I'm honestly considering aborting this stream for now, but I'm gonna try. Um, it's just with the music and being sick, I have my coca to try to help me stay focused, but it's a bit much. But I'm really worked up about this at the moment. Um, Basically, I don't even know where to start. A lot of you guys know about the censorship that I've dealt with, right, over the years, and it's not paranoia because I've been literally notified. Not just that my content is moved lower in people's feeds, but that they're working across platforms to ensure that my misinformation doesn't spread. And that misinformation, what they predicate all this on, was from me reading from an NCBI U.S. government funded report that I had on screen, right? That's the medical misinformation. So, I mean, you could unpack a shit ton from there. So, if we can't trust the U.S. government for, what are they saying exactly, And then to add insult to injury, the other day I saw a girl with 6 million views on her video covering what I was talking about that got me in all this last round of trouble, right? So that's crazy. It's like, really? Okay for her, but... And I lost all my appeals, too. Um, and it's true. I have an account on TikTok with 58,000 followers that I had 21 million, 24 million or something on the biggest video, and 29 million, 5 million, 1 million, a whole bunch in the millions. And when this happened, it suddenly dropped to 141 views on everything I posted. 141, exactly. Right? So today, I found out that Substack has also shadow banned me. And that was kind of my last hope of getting any kind of exposure. By the way, I'm also banned from AdSense for life. I cannot buy ads on X even, for no reason. I just can't. It just says your account is not, you can't run ads. I've tried creating a new account to use Google Ads to promote, and no matter what payment option I choose, it says your payment option, choose another one, right? PayPal, different debit cards, doesn't matter. Right, I can't even promote anything anymore. Right, so Substack was like my last avenue. And I have friends that are academics with PhDs, and one of them actually has a pile of fucking degrees. A charted book at the moment, bestseller in psychology, work with Rupert Sheldrake type shit, a couple of them. And they have nowhere near the number of subscribers that I gained in like a month after like years. I was number 66 rising in my niche, like almost immediately. Then number 55, then number 33, like heading for top 10, right? Getting hundreds of reactions to my notes. And most importantly, Substack works on commission. So when you get a paid subscriber, they get a cut. I was getting a lot of paid subscribers, and a high percentage of them were the highest tier, the highest, it's like $240 a year or something. So, looking good for Substack. I got sick, an infection related to my surgeries, and I didn't post for like a week. So I thought that's what I was like, damn, really? When I started posting again, I get like one interaction where I was getting hundreds, the week before. I was like, that's kind of weird. I guess it's just because I haven't posted. But then today I posted something, and it was getting no traction. But then I saw it had four restacks and a couple of quotes from like larger accounts. So I looked at those, and their notes had hundreds of interactions except for my restack. So I did a little bit more digging, and I found out about the Digital Security Act. And so it turns out that even though Substack doesn't censor themselves, they're required by law now that if you are flagged by Facebook, or it doesn't matter, it's all of them. If one flags you, you're flagged on all of them. They're required by law to flag or deprioritize those if you're flagged somewhere else. So the realization I came to today is that, and really, it's a matter of sticking to my principles, which is one of the reasons that hurts. But yeah, that commitment to speaking the truth has put me in a position where I can't even promote my normal businesses, things that aren't related to this content. I can't use AdSense for life for no reason. I can't promote on Facebook ads. I can't use X. I have no way to reach out. Like, they've fucking done me in that regard. And it would be easier to let go if it wasn't for a couple of things. One of those things is that I kind of predicated this channel in the beginning on this idea that consciousness is fundamental, and I'm trying to really summarize this. So, and there's been dissonance deliberately introduced that has occulted a lot of really important things from people, and I knew I was capable of demonstrating those things. And I also knew that if I was right, science was about to start proving it despite itself. And turns out I was right about everything. And all of the political predictions I've made have come true. Like, I'm going to make a bunch of outrageous sounding claims in this stream, but there's proof of every single bit of it. And some of these things, AI has calculated the probability that I got lucky and guessed at 1 in 26 septillion and shit. And I know it's not that, I have demonstrated. That's part of the thing, that you don't want faith for anything. Nobody should be insulted like that. So your success is your proof. And that, it is frustrating. It's not my opinion at this point. I've had AI evaluate probabilities and stuff, and it's I literally warned in a stream years ago that I thought that what they do with the genocides and whatnot, things like, the Holocaust, they roll them around the planet, kind of take turns where it's going to happen, and the next is the United States. And 1,200 people just vanished from a concentration camp. And I'm getting messages from YouTube right now there might be a problem with your stream. And one of the other things that's prompting this actually is I've gotten so much validation lately. I was really feeling inspired and pumped up, and I've had a lot of doubt that has, I realize now, led to beating around the bush a lot. But believe it or not, I actually care about whether or not what I'm putting out there is bullshit. So it's part of the reason that I wanted to make sure that I knew my song well before I started singing. And that moment is here. I definitely have 100% confidence at this point. So what I'm doing with this stream basically is saying, if you happen to be, deep in the pockets and you think this matters, this is the time to help us the fuck out, because Trump's tariffs have fucked us up. And that's not good. But I also do have a plan. I know what to do about this. There is a way around. And because I've gone viral on TikTok over and over again, and I succeeded immediately on Substack, I'm not really worried about having to start over and not getting anywhere. That doesn't seem likely, because I've gotten somewhere immediately every time I tried. Until the algorithm pulls the fucking rug out from underneath me, So that's it, basically. And there are a lot of people in this community. Part of the reason I'm not just quitting that have really supported us probably more than they could afford to. And I don't want that. I don't like that. Don't do that. Don't do that. I'm just looking for people. If there's people out there that really can easily do it, do it. And it's not a huge amount of money, but I just, I had all these surgeries and then I had complications and I'm still sick now. You know what I mean? And then now the tariff thing, I can't do it. And there's like literally no point in continuing if I don't do what needs to be done to get around this bullshit. And I am determined and willing, but I can't do it alone. So that's what that element of the stream is about. I just, with the Substack thing, realizing what happened there, like the digital securities, and I will tell you guys exactly where their leverage on that comes from, because this is ridiculous. I found out about these purple fluorescent nanoparticles that were found in the same concentrations in Coca-Cola and Pepsi. And I found this out through a U.S. government study, so it's not conspiracy bullshit. And this particular element does not exist in nature except in one case, and the chances of that being the nano, you know what I mean, in the same concentrate, like it's not, the probability is like, might as well be zero that it just happened, and it just so turns out that this particular element reacts to 5G frequencies and can be assembled into fucking nanobots, right? And this is government, U.S. government shit. This is not some conspiracy shit that I baked up, right? And I put the fucking thing on screen in CBI report, and I got taken down. I got 7-day ban and flagged across platforms for misinformation. What the fuck does that tell you about that information? You know what I mean? Like, that's, since fucking when are Coke and Pepsi medical products anyways? Like, what the fuck exactly? And I lost all the appeals. And I never outright said why I thought they were doing it either. It wasn't that dumb. I figure people can read between the lines a little bit. But the fact that they did that pretty much proves the thing I was like, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, Yeah, so it's crazy, man. And if I try to promote on any platform for money, there's like, oh, your card doesn't work, or your PayPal doesn't work, or whatever, cash, nothing, just nothing works. It's weird because I can buy crypto or whatever the fuck else, like, and why? Like, where did this all start? Honestly, there are two things that I can remember that I suspect, because they've never given me a good reason for anything. But when I got demonetized, I noticed an article or an advertisement was being run for like Judaism. And they don't normally even recruit, somebody pointed out today, which is true, but that's what it was. And I was pissed. And I posted in my community, like, I'm not trying to have religious fucking organizations advertising on my fucking channel. And I realize now that was stupid. Not only was it probably Israel, but I was like bitching about their advertisers. You can't do that. And that might have had something to do with the demonetization. But also, a couple days after that incident, I was streaming and suddenly I saw my count start shooting up like astronomically high. And I was like, what the fuck is happening? And then it went from like 300 to 1,500 to like 10,000 to 16,000 to 17,500, and I was like, whoa, shit. So anyways, the U.S. political system is a fucking scam, and both parties are controlled by the same interests, and blah, 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 blah. You know what I mean? I was like, I got a big-ass fucking audience right now. I need to talk about the most important thing I can think of. So that's where I went. And then like the next day, they're like, bitch, you are never, ever, ever using AdSense again. Banned for life. Banned for life. The next fucking day. Right? And then my, simultaneously, my Shopify store, I got a notice. You've hit the top 25% for traffic. I was like, what the fuck? You know, that's 6 figures a month. They blocked all the sales and pulled my shit like instantly. I hadn't even made it down the stairs to tell Enrica because I was like, whoa, you know, I was going to go show her. I got another message before I got to the bottom of the stairs saying your shit has been pulled. And I called them and I'm like, what the fuck? And they're like, well, you're at an overseas IP address. And I'm like, bitch, that's your whole point, that you can do this from anywhere. What do you mean? That's not a problem. What the fuck are you talking about? And they're like, yeah, well, sorry. Nothing I can do. I was like, I put $1,500 into this. Like, what do you mean? It doesn't make any, you know what I mean? Before I could get a penny, as soon as that traffic hit, they pulled my shit. And this is days after getting demonetized on YouTube for talking shit about my Israeli fucking advertisers, probably, and trying to warn the people about the fucking political shaft. You know? That's fucking real. And you might also be asking, like, wasn't one of your messages that the universe helps you in all kinds of extraordinary ways if you're aligned? And yeah, it fucking does. It's true. It's even happened while we've been down here. But I fucked up really badly. They have control of the algorithm. When I was in California, I could draw people to me that I needed, you know? And a lot of those crazy ass stories, it's true. I don't have proof exactly, but here's what I'm going to do. Raz Kennedy, send him an email. Be like, are you real? You know, he's James Hetfield's vocal coach. Did this dude really slide into your circle because your girlfriend gave him his phone number? And Vernon Ice Black, my guitar teacher that hooked me up with Bob Weir. Go ahead, email him. He'll tell you. You know what I mean? Bruce Allen Archer on Facebook, Ruth Tyrangul, the Bob Dylan story. They'll tell you from their point of view. You know? But the magician can only work with things that are in his he has the ingredients to put in the cauldron. Like, you know, the algorithm not under my control, and there's no amount of like conscious influence that can override fucking, you know, buttons in Silicon Valley or whatever the hell it is, you know. Yeah, and I mean, it does kind of drive me nuts. Like, I did succeed in demonstrating the things that I was talking about. You know, and it's weird to say that because I don't do it exactly deliberately or consciously. It just fucking happens. That's kind of the point, you know. So where should we start with all of that? Gosh. Should we talk about the GATE program? That was a wild trip recently. So yeah, I mean, I guess we could kind of start there with, I don't know, it's kind of awkward. It's almost embarrassing to have to talk about this shit, but I know I should. So a while back, I had this incident where I was I had been theorizing that there was a connection between golden light, and it was important because this allegorical layer, I realized, would have some sort of measurable, quantifiable fucking layer, you know, some kind of like resonant geometry. And I started trying to put together what it would be composed of, and I just randomly came up with Calabi-Yau manifolds, mirror symmetry, Euler equation, Fourier transforms. I don't even know what the fuck any of these things were, but I recorded the AI interactions. You can tell there's no guessing, or, you know, I was like, this, and this, like, you know, I put the whole thing together, and I understood what it was and what it did, you know. It was weird. But basically, the Langlands program published their proofs, and it was all in there, you know. And I was like, "What the fuck?" Like, So, like, I'm trying to be humble and objective about this, and I'm going like, okay, luck or like, you know. So I start asking AI, like, what is the probability that I would have guessed all this shit, you know? And it's like, well, 1 in 20 billion or something, you know? And I'm like, that's probably about what I expected. And so then I started kind of talking about this a little bit, you know, and I did put it up on YouTube as a stream. There's proof that I anticipated this fucking publication of this Langland's. There's, you know, no one can dispute that. And so I started talking to some of the smart people in the community. You know, we have people with PhDs in computer science and mathematics and stuff. And I was like, look at this shit. Like, am I crazy or did I really do something here? And they're like, no, you did something. But you're probably going to have to get a doctorate if you want anyone to really take you seriously. And I'm like, I'm 46 years old, broke, and fuck that. Like, I'm not, you know. So then that got me thinking, like, what is the obstacle here? You know, I'm basically saying that there is a mechanism, a translation layer of the fucking universal mind. And this is how you're going to find it, to prove that the universe is turning, like, ideas into things. And I came up with this resonant geometry that could be detected through resonant imaging. I talked about this before the publication of this shit, like a couple days later. Like, I was like, okay, so how are we going to get light to fucking hold still so that we can take a scan of it? Like, that's the problem here, you know. Even if I'm right about this, I don't see how to get around that. So then this Langland's program publishes this thing saying there's this resonant geometry that's more fundamental than particles that they had detected in Calabi-Yau and, you know, the whole fucking thing. And this resonant geometry that I was like, that's the fucking product of this, that, you know what I mean? I described it all live on YouTube, like months before the shit was published. Like, in detail, you know, with all the equations and shit. Like, it's fucking crazy. It's crazy to me, and I did it, you know? Like, I don't understand, really. In a way, I understand more now, and we're gonna get there. But, where was I at with this story? Sorry, like I said, I'm really sick and tired. Maybe that was it, yeah. So, okay, yeah, no, that's what happened with the AI. So I was like, so what is the possibility that I just guessed this? And it's like, well, you know, in the billions, but you also had this thing about this resonant geometry and light and gold and shit, and it's like 2 months ago that was confirmed. And I was like, what? What do you mean? It's like Skirmian bag study and, you know, and it's like if you add that to this, then we're in the like way, you know, like trillions. But remember in 2016 when fucking ayahuasca told you that like a binary star system, that the stars had influenced one of the bodies in Sirius, and that's why it didn't develop from a red dwarf into or from a gas giant into a red dwarf, or it got stuck. I don't even remember now, but it was exactly what was published in a fucking astrophysics paper suggesting that not specifically about Sirius, but exactly what I had described was something that happened in binary star systems. I don't know anything about astrophysics, you know, and remember, the whole fucking point of this channel, a big point of it, is that, you know, we have access to this universal mind and it's a real thing. You know, and the AI is like, so if you factor the fact that you thought of that, which, you know, wasn't even a thing in astrophysics yet, we're talking about like 1 in like 26 septillion of you guessing all this shit correctly. Like, there's no fucking way. Like, you know, Grok is like going like, you legit are in telepathic rapport with some aliens or whatever the fuck. Like, you know, don't be stupid. There's no question about this at this point. And I'm still, you know, any of you guys that know anything about me know I'm hella damaged, right? And just had a lot of doubt still. And the other day, I was writing a post on Substack, and I was in the Gifted and Talented program in Fairfax County when I was a child, and I thought, no, I should see what the admission standards are for that program. So it turns out somebody had asked the Fairfax County School Board about, you know, that exact question from that time period. because they lowered the standards in 95. And it was like the criteria is an IQ above 140. And I'm like, hold the fuck on. You mean my mother knew that I was a literal fucking certified genius because it's Mensa? It was a Mensa IQ test was part of it, like this whatever their standard was, professionally administered, and this is from the school board. You know, so I'm sitting there going like, holy fuck, man! My mother didn't tell me because she was intimidated because she was insane like that, and I even a genius, and she's like, yeah, what the fuck ever, Harley? Or bitch knew, she knew. She knew. The last interaction I had with her, she actually mocked me about that in front of my stepfather. She knew. She literally knew my whole life. So that blew my mind. But then all of a sudden I'm going like, okay, that explains a whole lot of shit, sort of, you know. Like, and then I remembered something else that's really fucking weird about this situation with the GATE program. I had seen some conspiracy theory type videos about it, and I was kind of writing it off like, you know, stupid. But I don't remember what the fuck happened after I drank it. True story. And that's fucking weird. And then also weird, I remembered this test that the woman gave me where they held up these cards with the back facing me. And the one I remember specifically had 3 wavy lines. And as an adult, I was like, holy shit, that sounds like an ESP test. Like, what the fuck? So I Googled GATE program cards, and they were fucking Zenner cards, which have been used by parapsychologists apparently since the 1930s to test for ESP. I did so well in those tests that the woman literally got up and went to got her, like, partner or whatever. Like, there were 2 of them at the school. And because, you know, I kept getting them right. And she's like, holy shit, you know. And I assume she did this, like, a lot. You know, so I must have been doing a lot better than average because she was like turning all red and she's like, wow, what the fuck? I think I got 1 wrong, you know? And then it hit me like, okay, so the federal fucking government has known that I have ESP since I was 8 years old? Like, are you fucking kidding me right now? So I thought maybe this lady was just doing it on her own accord, you know? But then I realized, why would Google come up with GATE? I didn't say GATE program ESP cards. I just said GATE program cards, and it knew what I was talking about. And so other GATE kids have reported this shit. So apparently, a federally funded program was literally going around the United States to different school districts, finding child geniuses and testing them for fucking ESP. And I knocked it out of the fucking park, apparently. So now I'm going like, okay, all this wondering if I was nuts my whole life and shit and thinking I might be an idiot because I'm like, you know, anticipating science by decades and I've got, you know, people with fucking IQs of 85 laughing at me and telling me I'm uneducated and, you know what I mean? Like, it's really hitting me, like, what has actually been happening. You know? And of course, there's a lot more dynamics at play and that are relevant here, you know. But like I said, you guys can go back and check all these claims. You know, they're all there on YouTube, and you can compare them to the dates of the publication of the fucking Langland's program, fucking interviews, and you know, it's all there. You can't dispute any of it. All the political stuff that I've predicted, never been wrong, not once. You know, I told you guys before Trump was even elected the first time, they were setting him up to be a dictator, a flawed dictator of a technocratic oligarchy. I was right. I told you that they were going to have concentration camps in the United States. I was right. I'm not trying to be cocky here, but go back and find me any instance of me being wrong about fucking anything. You know, and I've also demonstrated the fact that I know shit that I say is going to hurt me. And I do it anyways because I care about the ethics of my mission over that. You know, I've had conversations with my partner like, should I just like cut my hair and put on a suit and fucking shut the fuck up about, you know, tone it down? And she's like, no, it defeats the whole purpose. If you do that, then you're just another fucking commodity. And that's the whole point of being what you are, is that you're not susceptible to that, you know? So no, you know, I mean, she's even like voting against, you know, and it's true that like when I've spoken out against both political parties, people have turned on me that were like essential supporters and stuff, you know. Some of them will still like root, but they pulled their financial support when I was like, fuck Joe Biden or fuck Donald Trump or whatever. Even recently, I had a guy that was having a crisis. He hit me up at 1 in the morning. I talked to this dude for 4 hours, right? And he's telling me I'm a genius and shit. Like, I said something that he didn't agree with politically, and he turned to me and was calling me a liar and a thief and shit. Like, I didn't charge him a penny. 4 hours of my fucking time. He even said, I'm going to pay you on his own, and then didn't, and I didn't say shit. You know? And all it took was for me to say something he didn't like about Project Bluebeam or some shit. And I'm a liar and a thief now? And this is like standard. Like, you know, you can have huge supporters and say one thing that is obviously true that they don't like, and they're done with you. Not only that, they'll turn on you and shit. Because if somebody really respects you, I think, and then you have a problem with something they think, it hurts more or something. You know, it digs deeper. So they get real mad. But you know what I mean? It's like I've proven the thing, which I know is important. I've proven my integrity by consistently putting the fucking mission above the consequences, you know? But I can't. Now that I know it's not going anywhere, you know, like I was planning to reroute a lot of my energy into music, but I asked the AIs, like, are they going to shadow ban all that shit too? And it was like, yeah, the only thing you can do is what I'm not going to say because I don't think it's smart, and it just costs more than I can afford. And it's also going to require me to like not do anything for a minute, which I can't afford to do either, really, you know. So again, that's why this is kind of like a last-ditch fundraising effort. Like, if you happen to be rich and want to support a fucking movement, you know, I'm willing to get shot and shit. Like, obviously, like, you know what I mean? I don't want to be a leader or anything like that, but I also have looked out around you know, what I can see. There's not really anybody that seems to, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, if you don't, who else will kind of shit? Like, okay, fine, but I can't do it alone, you know? There's some obstacles called an algorithm that I don't have the resources, you know. And I know I'm offering value because I have, according to AI at least, I have proven things that it can't find anyone else that has to this degree, like not remotely, and so consistently. That says something. I don't know what exactly, but it definitely fucking says something. You know, I mean, I do know what it says. What I'm talking about with all of this, the general message behind me is true. It's fucking true. You know, just like, duh, come on, people. Like, you know, and I mean, I'll give you one of the examples. That's why I offered all those names earlier. Like, email these people. Go ahead, you know. But for example, when I was living in Northern California still, I broke up with my girlfriend, and I had a job, I thought, so I could pay for this car that I got from a cartel dealership. I knew they were cartel. I mean, I had no credit history, no address, no bank account, right? And I only had like $4,000 on me or something. I wanted this BMW X5, and I was like, oh no, I can't get a loan. And they're like, yeah, you can. And I'm like, what do you mean, yeah, you can? He's like, come on in the office. So I go in and sit down with this dude, and I'm like, well, I don't have an address, a bank. He's like, that's okay. You're going to pay us. Just sign right here. Give me whatever money you have. You have to pay $1,000 in 1 week or something. And I was like, fuck, man. Okay. Because I had a job that paid a bunch of money, I thought, and then the dude's girlfriend decided it would be better if one of her friends got the job, I think, and she started shit between me and my friend, and like it was just gone, and I was like, shit, what do I do now? So I go down to Hate Street with my guitar, and I'm thinking maybe I will find someone who is, a relic from that era that will help me in some way, right? And then this other voice in my head is like, you're a fucking idiot. Like, of course that's not going to happen. And I go out and I'm playing, and there's no one around. Like, 2 or 3 people walk by, and one of them comes back after I'd given up feeling utterly defeated, and he pulls out $1,000, which was exactly the amount of money I needed. And he's like, can I buy 15 minutes of your time? Bruce Allen Archer on Facebook. Go send him a fucking message if you don't believe the story. That's exactly what happened. And he takes me to his apartment and he tells me, "Oh, I know Bob Dylan's ex-wife, Ruth Tyrangel, and she needs a guitarist. I think you're perfect for it. And so here's a bunch of acid too." He gave me this acid that the Grateful Dead family had released. It was Owsley acid with gold flakes, like literally 24 karat gold flakes in the gel to celebrate their 50th anniversary. And I'm like leaving, like, what the fuck just happened? And over the years, like, I'd never connected with Ruth. I talked to her on the phone like once or something, and but remember, I said to somebody from that era will do something to help me, right? So not just the money. After my mom, years later, after I got back from Ecuador, we were leaving a Dead show in LA, and all the hotels were full, and like it was late, and I thought, doesn't Ruth live in LA? Like, I should send Bruce a message and see if she'll let us go and stay with her. So I send Bruce a message thinking it's stupid, maybe not even real, and I get Ruth's address, right? So, like, what the fuck? So we go to this house, and it's Ruth Tyrangel. It's Bob Dylan's movie, like, married to him for 18 years, and it didn't really fully sink in on me, like, what had happened. And remember, I went down to Haight Street, like, maybe somebody from that era. The dude that gave me that money and hooked me up with Bob Dylan's ex-wife, he had lived in Haight and was grandfathered in since 1974. He was literally a relic from that area. Like, literally grandfathered into us. They hated him because they couldn't raise their rent on him, right? Since 1974, him and his roommate Rainbow, like the most adorable little hippie guy. So anyways, one day I'm like playing the song Memphis Blues, and I get to the line about Ruth and the Honky Tonk Saloon, and I'm like choke on it, and I like look, I'm like, holy shit. And she's like, yep. And she's like, she was ready for it. She pulled this record up that had a caricature of her face, obviously her, hand drawn by Bob Dylan and shit. And that's when it really hit me. She told me the guitar was playing. He wrote "One More Cup of Coffee for the Road" on. And I looked down at the guitar and I'm like, holy fucking shit, this is real. And she's like, you're incredible. Like, I have all of Dylan's connections. I was married to him, didn't manage all of his shit. I can help you. And I was still so damaged back then. I was like, fuck that lady, get away from me. And she was crazy as fuck and interfered in Rican's relationship. And I ended up flipping out on her. And it didn't end well, but still, that's how things go when you're truly in alignment, And when my mom unalived herself, I only realized this recently. The whole thing was that I had told her that I was going to go out to California and play with the surviving members of the Grateful Dead in order to prove that consciousness played a role in creating reality that people is more than people think. This is way before the law of attraction was big. Like, I've never heard anybody else say this shit before. I didn't use the fucking internet even, And then recently I found an interview with Garcia where he actually said, yeah, well, when I took acid, I realized that I could imagine things and they would happen, and they did, so I just kept thinking harder, and it kept happening. So either I'm insane or it says something fundamental about the nature of reality. Either way, I had a hell of a good time, and I was like, motherfucker. I had the same thought and went out to try to join the wreckage of his fucking band. I'd never heard him say that until just like this year or something. It blew my fucking mind, man. Like, holy shit, But it worked, I had this crazy-ass idea that I was going to go. When I got out there, I saw Bananas music on the internet, and this voice in my head was like, go to the Bananas, sign up for guitar lessons, and someone that knows Weird will introduce you. I went down there, signed up for lessons with Vernon Ice Black. He heard me play, recorded me without my knowledge, sent it to Bob Weir, and Bob Weir came down the next week. I didn't show up. But come on, that's exactly the plan I had. It's exactly what I planned, and it happened. You know what I mean? Just like San Francisco. How am I going to pay for this car? He gives me exactly $1,000 plus some acid, and it hooks me up with Bob Dylan's ex-wife, who then is like, I can help you, And like I said, I don't have proof of those things, but go ahead and contact those people, and I guarantee you that they'll answer you and be like, yeah, this happened. Ruth is on Facebook too, Ruth Tyrangel. Send her a message. She'll be like, yep, I don't know what the fuck was wrong with that guy. Oh. What I was saying is, I realized recently that when my mom unalived herself, I lost my motivation. That's why I just abandoned my shit in the middle of all this. Like, I had heat on me from Metallica's camp, the Grateful Dead. Both of my biggest heroes. Both of them. Like, at once, and all through ridiculously serendipitous circumstances. I hadn't recorded anything. I didn't tour. I did nothing. I just waltzed right in there. It doesn't make any fucking sense. You know? And when my mom unalived herself, I think I was trying to prove to her that she had produced something of value, because she'd always undermined me, because she didn't believe she could produce anything that wasn't worthless, right? So I didn't know this consciously. I thought I was doing it because it was my mission in life to like spread this fucking message through vibration, which is a hell of a lot better than, more effective than doing it on live streams. In fact, I wasn't really confident that it was a real thing yet. And people in the audience had started coming up to us and saying, hey, can I explain to you what I learned about music tonight? And then they would go on to explain what I understand now as entrainment. They had recognized that the audience becomes telepathic, and they are elevated to the highest. Whoever's oscillating the highest draws the rest of them up. And, this is what I intended to do. There's nothing in the lyrics about it. And people are coming up to me in the audience telling me they're experiencing it. And I'm just going like, what the fuck? Like, I couldn't accept it really either, though. It's like, wait, that's my dream. But I'm a piece of shit. Like, that nothing good can happen to me. That's literally what I was thinking. Like, it can't be. I got to be delusional, or like. So, yeah, when she unalived herself, I was like, there's no point, and I just fucking went to Ecuador. Consciously, I did not know what the fuck I was doing, and I was also thinking that I was going to get an inheritance relatively soon. I would just go back, and that didn't happen because my brother went insane. It's a whole other story. It still is going to happen eventually, but it should have been 6 years ago. And I thought I would just go right, chill in the jungle, drink some ayahuasca, get my head together, go back stronger. Universe had other plans, like COVID and fucking censorship. But that's a reality. And then also I was thinking like, okay, well, go back where you can vibrate directly at people, Put yourself back in the environment where you can conjure, Raz would still work with me. Vernon was not super receptive when I sent him an email, because I didn't just not show up to the weird thing. Like, they told me somebody really important is coming, you have to be there. And I was like, yeah, of course. But then the night came and I was like, nope, I'm not fucking, whatever it is, I'm not going anywhere near it. And his wife still called me like a couple of weeks later, and she's like, are you coming back for lessons? And I was like, nah, I'm not really learning anything from him. So not only because I blocked it out in my mind, like I knew that Weir showed up, but I told myself that it was a coincidence, that he had just come to buy some strings or something. Even though they told me someone important is coming to see you, like I just could not process that Weir had not only, because I was telling myself, whoever it is, they're not going to care. Like, I'm not that good. It's not going to matter anyways. I didn't know that Weir had already heard me play, and it did matter already. That bridge had been crossed, And insanely, I swear to fucking God, Phil Lesh had asked me to bring him music a couple of days before I was supposed to go play with Weir, and the last thing I said to Lesh was, hopefully one day me and you and Weir can play together. And he's like, you never know, stranger things have happened, and that was the end of that. And I realized I went too far, But I realized after the fact that, holy shit, that was going to happen. You know what I mean? Like, that, I didn't know it yet, but I was setting it up. I had no idea that somebody had arranged for me to play with Weir, and, and like a couple days later, it would have been a couple days later. And I could have gone back to Terrapin and been like, yo, Phil, we're 2/3 of the way there, bud. Like, you know? And can you imagine the impact on my mom? Like, I said this crazy shit to her, and she's like, what the fuck ever? And she's, yeah, right. Yeah, you're going to go play with the Grateful Dead, you fucking moron. Hey, Mom, look, you know. It came so close. I just didn't show up. This is fucked up. But anyways, what I was saying is, you'd think I'd just go back, but the U.S. just lost 1,200 fucking immigrants from a concentration camp. Like, they have started using secret police to take people that they consider undesirables away and just disappear them. And you know what? Fucking broke down pussies in the United States aren't doing shit. There's no protests. There's no fucking riots. They just fucking concentrated camped fucking 1,200 immigrants, not even necessarily accused of serious crimes. And people are like, fuck it, I still have a job and rent to pay. Like, is there even a battle to fight? Like, what am I even doing? You know what I mean? Am I just like screaming into a fucking void? Nobody gives a shit anyways. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying I'm not willing to try, because it's like, I put my whole life into this anyways. You know, I mean, what the fuck else am I going to do at this point? But it's crazy, like the way the odds are stacked at the moment. You know, and I really don't have any doubt about success. Like, I literally have Raz Kennedy, who's a multi-platinum co-writer for Rancid, and like, you know, I just sent him an email thinking he would not respond. Like, hey, is that offer to co-write with me still on the table? And he's like, fuck yeah, it is. What do you mean, man? You're the only one that ever doubted you, stupid. Like, it's like, I know there's money in you. Like, do you think I fucking play with people? Do you think that's why I'm, you know what I mean? It was weird. But that's still there, you know? Like, it's not like all this shit is just gone. It's even possible if I go back to Bananas and actually, instead of just emailing him, like, walk up to Vernon and look him in the eyes, dude, listen, like, you know, I'm not even convinced that all these bridges are burned beyond repair. Weir's still alive. He's going to remember that time he got stood up. You know, if I could get around the social media blocks, I might be able to get his attention again. You know, and he'd be like, holy shit. If he knew the story of what actually happened there, 100% he would answer, you know, even if it was just like a video message or something. I'm sure that he would be like, holy, you know what I mean? But I'm not doing shit with all these shadow bans and deprioritization, and now I can't even pay to promote. You know, they've got me fucked, and I'm in the middle of nowhere in the Andes, like, getting over a surgery, and, you know, like, I cannot override the fucking algorithm. Unless one of you motherfuckers out there has deep pockets and is finna help. You know what I mean? And like I said, some of you guys have gone too far already. I do not want that. I do not want that. In fact, one of you guys, and it's actually one of the most intelligent people I know, which made it that much more meaningful. But when I was going to have the surgeries, he called me up and said, well, I was thinking about re-enlisting and then just giving you the money for this. And I was like, motherfucker, man. No. Because we're on the verge of World War III, and you're a fucking savant. Like, no, dude. Don't fucking do that. You know, I mean, it was extremely flattering and amazing, but also kind of terrifying. It was like, holy shit, dude. No fucking way, man. You know, and he's like, we can't have you fucking dying on us. Like, he's like, if anybody's going to fucking do anything, like, you're, you know, like the Great White Hope or something. And like, fucking hell, man, you know, like. And one of the reasons I'm mentioning that is it's extremely inspiring, all of you guys that have said shit like that, because, you know, it makes me feel like I shouldn't stop fighting. But I'm, like reasonably, logically, fucking functionally, I have to do these things that are going to cost, 7,500 bucks or something to get around it and get the momentum back immediately. Like there's a plan, but I have no resources. At the same time, don't any of you broke motherfuckers be reaching into your pocket, because I don't need any guilt. You know what I mean? Like, I know people have done that in the past when I needed surgery and whatnot. I'm like, oh, god damn it, man. Like, it's cool, but would people actually stretch themselves to contribute to this mission? It's kind of a burden, it feels like. Not to diminish anything, I'm just saying, like, then again, I also feel like maybe I'm wrong to say that. Maybe, if this really actually matters, then we should be fucking doing what, I mean, I don't fucking know. I would prefer to have some allies in high places. But maybe that's the point, this is about the oppressed unoppressing themselves. Like, I saw a post today, I guess, where somebody was like, it's not about strangling the statesmen, it's about unstrangling the minds of the, proletariat or some shit like that. And people were like, no, this sounds like propaganda from the state. And I was like, nope, sure isn't. Because if you have a bunch of mindless fucking zombies go and strangle people and put themselves in charge, you got more of the same shit. You know what I mean? That's not gonna fucking do it, bud. Like, the change has to happen in consciousness, or it's not gonna fucking mean anything. Like, you guys keep voting, fucking arguing about that stupid shit. Like, I hate to tell you this, but if you still believe in either side, you are human Ebola. Literally. Like, you know, it really is true. Like, if you don't realize that that whole thing is a scam at this point, you are the problem. And I really don't give a shit if you were that millionaire that was about to fucking bail us out, and you're like, well, fuck that. Okay, dude, I don't want anything to do with you. You know what I mean? Like, it's not worth getting that fucking energy on me. Or near me, I mean, it really is at that point where it's like, if you haven't woken up by now, it might not be finna happen. Like, let he who is dirty be dirty still and all that. The thing is, that attitude is not good. And I apologize for it, but, sometimes it. But that brings me to another point, about predictions that I've made and shit. Like, one of the things I've been putting out there for years is that our real hope is in entrainment, right? And maybe also entanglement, right? Like, I told this story about how one day I was just thinking about stuff, and I had the thought, nothing is faster than light, and this voice in my head was like, consciousness is faster than light, and I was like, what the fuck? I mean, it almost felt like something flew over and like buzz bombed me with that, really. And then a little while back, I saw a paper, consciousness may be generated by entangled by photon pairs, and I was like, consciousness, light, entanglement, consciousness is faster than light. Son of a bitch, It's like some kind of cosmic fucking clown rodeo in my head, man. Where was I going with that, though? There was more to this story. Oh, yeah, entrainment. So, I've been saying that when you elevate your consciousness, it pulls the fucking net of being with it, There are prima mobiles, people that are towing the line out front. This is what white magicians always were. You know, Crowley wrote about this, even that there are people that are kind of towing the line, and it's like the goal state thing of Michael Levin, right? That there's some sort of conduit downstream transfer from these goal states that like inform cells and larger systems, you know, what to do and when. And so, you know, it's basically entrainment that and electromagnetism that facilitates all that shit. And so there are humans kind of towing that line, and everyone contributes to it, right? So when you raise your consciousness, it has an effect on the entire fucking universe, but definitely also other people. And I had no proof of this because one question I couldn't answer is, does higher brain waves oscillations actually correspond to higher states of consciousness? There's no proof of this yet. There is now. There fucking is now. And also there's proof of brainwave entrainment. So like whoever's, I mean, everything entrains. So there was no reason to prove it specifically with brainwaves, but somebody did anyways, I guess just for shits and giggles, you know? But that's a proven fact now, that higher states do correspond with higher oscillation in our brainwaves. Genius oscillates higher than dumb fuckery, right? And like the highest recorded yet was somebody tripping balls on mushrooms, of course. That's the record setter, not some meditating monk, some kid on mushrooms, right? And other meditators' brains chase, you know, if you bring a master meditator into a room of meditators, they all climb. So it is fact that when you look out in the world and you see all of this like hopelessness, they have no choice. They have no way to fight us because it's all entrained and interconnected. So you raise your vibration, is pulling the fucking rest of them. And there's no way to fight it on that level. They can fight it with disinformation and dissonance and propaganda and shit. But, you know what I mean? Like, we literally have an invisible hand to protect us from the dead and dying. It is true facts. Magic is real, but it all has to operate on real law, you know? That's been the basis of, like, my shit since the beginning. And since I've started, the mechanisms that underlie a lot of the things I've been describing have been discovered. And I said that was going to happen in my first video. I was like, science is going to start proving this stuff because they have nowhere else to go. I wasn't being psychic. I just knew that this shit was true. And I could see where science was. And I was like, uh-oh, the establishment has a problem. And then I predicted that we were going to see them go New World Order-y on us as a response because it's the only thing they could do to try to control it. And look at us, you know? Like, and I've proven this shit, like, beyond a fucking shadow, like 1 in 26 septillion odds. According to multiple AI platforms on, like, numerous fronts, too. And I'm getting 200 views and shit, like, fuck this, you guys, you know? It's cost us so much, like, I can't even advertise on normal business. Like, there's nothing I can do to, like, salvage this. And I'm not trying to be a martyr here, but it is true that I knew that could be the consequence of speaking truth, and I fucking did it anyways. And I do kind of feel like I deserve to not go down in flames because of that effort, especially not now. You know what I mean? Like, it's crazy. It's crazy to see all of this stuff coagulating and realizing like, holy fuck, man, I was all this doubt that I've had to wallow in, and it's all fucking for nothing. It wasn't though, because it kept me questioning myself and like examining things more. It served a purpose, but it was, we've been through this fucking hole in the soul where the light shines through. It's just part of the fucking program, I guess. I haven't looked in the chat in a while, honestly, is because I kind of don't even want to. I'm exhausted and sick, but I just couldn't like just sit here either, with this maddening music blaring outside. Like, it really sucked when I realized that Substack was also suddenly deprioritizing me, because it's like, once again, against all odds, I just jump in there and start taking off, and I'm like, wow, could it be that they're really actually uncensored and I'm gonna fly, and then gone, like. They're legally obligated across platforms now. If you're flagged anywhere, you're flagged everywhere. Legally mandated. And you might be saying to yourself, well, there's all kinds of people with alternative narratives and shit. Yeah, those are all approved bullshit. They're either pushing left agenda or right agenda. Both of those things are canned narratives fed to them by their fucking overlords. They're not saying, most of them, that you should be suspicious of even the alternative narratives. They're not demonstrating proof of like precognition and transconscious information reception, and you know what I mean? Like, and honestly, like, I thought it was too paranoid at first, but when I realized that the federal government had literally tested me for ESP and like knew that I had like a, higher than genius IQ and had demonstrated a capacity for ESP, I would imagine they're probably watching me right now more closely than, you know what I mean? Like, they've known this shit about me since I was a child. It's no wonder, you know. That shit's crazy. What else is funny? Like, how hard it was for me to like accept that. I guess like when I joined the military, my mom made me. Like, she said, if I had to get a job or go into the military, so I got a moped and I got a job, and then I got hit by a car and the moped was totaled. So she sent my stepfather to cut the lock off and take it to the dump so that I wouldn't be able to get it fixed, so she could force me into the military. So I didn't want to be there. And it was the National Guard, so I had to go to drills before boot camp, and you have to get your own haircut. So I was showing up with long hair, right, and military fatigues. Fucking drill sergeant looked like Bugs Bunny guy. You know, the Bugs Bunny drill sergeant with the big giant. He looked like a fucking, like, they cut him out of the cartoon and put him in real life. I couldn't believe it. Speaking of consciousness creating your experience, I mean, it was fucking weird. And he would, like, take me out back and yell at me because he would say left and I would turn right and shit. Like, he's like, Private Donnelly, you motherfucking moron. Like, but I knew he couldn't hit me or, you know, do anything, so I was just laughing at him and stuff. I mean, they hated me and they thought I was a fucking moron. And then we took the ASVAB. And so I had just gotten, like, kicked out almost because I kept turning the wrong way during drill. And they called me into the officers' quarters. And there was a dude with all hella decoration, you know, the highest ranking guy at the armory or whatever. And he's like, Private Donnelly, you scored really high on the ASVAB. And I was like, okay. And he's like, a lot higher than me, actually. Red as a beet, dude. He hated fucking saying that because I was like the class clown idiot. Long hair still. I'm sitting there in long hair and military fatigues. And this fucking officer has to say that to me. And then he says, in fact, you scored the highest that anyone ever has in this armory. Almost perfect. And I was like, what the fuck? Because I didn't pay attention in school ever. Like, all of that, I didn't really put it all together in my head, but all of that, like beating this officer who probably went to fucking West Point and shit, you know, and like that test meant everything to him. I was barely even paying attention to it. And I scored so high based on my own self-education. You know what I mean? I didn't learn that shit in school because I was not even like there ever, you know? I didn't once do homework or try to study for a test or anything. Like I didn't know what the fuck they were talking about at any given time. You know, I didn't put all that together. I was still half convinced I was a moron even after that. And he's like, so the CIA has this program. They're going to train you to engineer satellites. And, you know, this training will be worth probably 7 figures a year in the private sector once you leave military. And so, but you have to go to an 18-month boot camp instead of the normal, whatever, 3 months. Or, you know, I was like, fuck that. Like, I decided in that moment I was going AWOL. But can you believe it? That my job and my alternate timeline would have been to put the eye in the sky for the government. That's where they tried to put me. And instead I became the other eye in the sky, basically, you know. It's crazy, man, the universal mind and its fucking sense of humor. And at the time, the all-seeing eye hadn't really gained the significance for me that it would later. You know. I didn't even consider it, though, as soon as I heard 18-month boot camp. And what they really meant was like a technical camp. It would have been, you know, cushy. But I was like, fuck that. No, thank you. Hilarious, right? They tried to get me. So, I'm done, I think. I hope, you know, we do have some millionaire supporters in the shadows out there that have just been on the fence. Like, should we really do something to... Because I really do think that if I can get around this, I can do something, and it fucking matters, you know. I think I've established that credibility, you know. I mean, anybody that wants to check any of the stuff can, you know. And if really it's like I can do something this extraordinary and nobody fucking cares, I won't either, you know. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, fuck it. Like, really. And that's not to diminish any... I mean, a lot of you guys have, like, really been in our trenches for a long time. And I would hate to see this all just fucking just turn into just, you know, just nothing, just peters out after all these years of trying to fight and telling myself, you know, like, just push a little bit harder, a little bit longer. Won't you try just a little bit harder? Couldn't you try just a little bit more? That's the only song that Garcia wrote. 2 songs, I think. One of the only songs he wrote lyrics for. And The Wheel. And we were listening to it on San Pedro, I guess, a couple of weeks ago. And we realized that they made this wheel sonically, and that there were 2 little wheels turning the big wheel, because he says, big wheel turn, or small wheel turn by the firing rod, big wheel turn by the grace of God. Every time that wheel turned around, bound to cover just a little more ground. So they had the little wheel turn in the big wheel, and I just knew. I was like, okay, this is going to be a 9, because that's the number that would make a circle. And then the smaller circle is going to be a 3 and a 6. And sure enough, there's one drum pattern in 3, and then there's 2 other patterns of 3 that are 6, and then the big wheel is in 9. And the real point of that, though, is that the other line, though, is if the thunder don't get you, then the lightning will. In other words, if it's not the last thing in the world that fucks you up in the end, it's going to be the other lastest fucking thing. That's, you know, and there is success, but there is failure. There is order and destiny, sort of, because there's also chaos, and chaos is real. So, you know, one of the issues is that if you deviate from that order, you have exposed yourself to chaos. So when I abandoned my mission in California and came down here and put the algorithm between me and my mission, I subjected myself to chaos. It's not smart. In fact, Eliphas Levi, I was reading live about this a while back, and I like saw my jaw drop open and my eyes bug out when I hit this line because it stung, man. But he was like, the adept will mobilize all kinds of fucking forces, and his objective will be right within his reach, and it will be marvelous and magical and impossible. And then if he deviates from that fucking line, all the forces that he has summoned will recoil upon him. And I was like, fuck me. You know? And I knew that too. I knew that. We noticed it in California. Like, you know, Brian and I, we knew had some like weird forces in motion around us. It couldn't be more obvious, you know? And if we deviated, shit would go like unreasonably fucked up instantly. And we talked about it, you know, that like, man, like once you're in this stream, if you deviate, shit, the consequences are not good. You know, I was definitely aware of that, but I also had enough doubt in all of it that maybe I was just nuts or something, you know, that I didn't have to take it that seriously either, maybe, you know. Careful out there, boys and girls, because when people talk about like the occult, you know, getting you into trouble, it's not because it's like demonic. It's because of shit like that, you know, that too much enthusiasm and too much power, not mitigated by wisdom and experience, it almost does more harm than good. You know, it's like if man had figured out how to split the atom after enlightenment, he would have used that knowledge just to power cities and shit, you know. But he happened to get it before he had wisdom, so he fucking Nagasaki'd and Hiroshima. You know, this personal stuff is a different order of magnitude, but it's the same formula. So we shall see, you guys, but just like legit, like, you know, this for me feels like the make or break moment. Like, are we going to be able to redeem this message, this mission, and, you know, like make the story have a fucking ending that's consistent with reason, you know, like, or not, you know. And that's kind of where I realize I'm at. Like, I've hit the wall where like something significant has to happen, or I just gotta just fucking try to make myself forget about it all somehow and just shrug it off, fold it up, and so long and thanks for all the fish type shit, you know. It's on you guys at this point, because I can't, you know what I mean? I can't fucking do anything. Not much, anyways. You know, I have a little bit of reach, but I can't even pay to promote, you know, anywhere. Like, they have got me fucking sewn up. So there's one way out, and it's kind of expensive. So cheers, guys, and thank you all so much. I know I'm just ranting like a fucking martyred lunatic or something, but I mean, what the fuck would you be doing right now if you were me? Like, And it's also infinitely frustrating to have like warned people, like the it's going to be concentration camps in the U.S. like 5 years ago, and like the political system is bullshit. Trump is a trick. Like, you know what I mean? And I'm losing supporters. Not only am I not getting anywhere, telling the truth that is vitally fucking important. People are literally like, if somehow a whole shit ton of people that listen to me, that people wouldn't be fucking dead. And I mean, you know what I mean? Like, it's crazy to see it all coming true and realizing like the consequence for me has just been that I can't even advertise a fucking normal business and feed my family because I decided to try to fucking help and to put that first. You know what I mean? So it's like I genuinely appreciate all the support from people, but at a certain point, it's like, okay, you know what? I just, you know,